Welcome to the Good Reading Magazine podcast. Good Reading is a monthly magazine dedicated to books and reading and aims to help readers discover their next favourite book. You can find out more about the books discussed on today's podcast at goodreadingmagazine.com.au.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to the Good Reading Podcast. Catherine Deveny is a writer, commentator, and comedian. She's the author of 9 books, including Mental, Use Your Words, The Happiness Show, and It's Not My Fault They Print Them. Today, I'm talking to Catherine about her memoir, True North. Catherine, welcome to the Good Reading Podcast.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
True North begins with a relationship breakdown. Your words are, when we get home, I'm moving out. We've tried everything a million times and we're just getting sicker and sicker. There has to be something better than this. I'm exhausted. I surrender. I guess the implication of that is that relationships might be a bit like a war, are they?
No, they're not like a war at all. It's just like a peeling of skin. I think that what makes people think it might be like a war has got to do with the perception of, changing things and transitions being some kind of failure. So I think the war is just with our own perception of how longevity is somehow a sign of a good relationship or even long-term monogamy. So no, we certainly didn't have a war between us. We just kind of had I suppose, a tantrum with reality, that cognitive dissonance that you have when you had this idea of what you wanted to be and you invested in it and you tried, as much as you can to make it work. And if relationships were about how much work you put in, Mars and I would still be together. It's just people change, and it's not just relationships we split up with. We're constantly splitting up with ideas and perceptions of ourselves and how we want to live, how we want to eat, what we want to dress, gender, sexuality, politics, everything. But the patriarchy and religion and the state have a vested interest in keeping us in a state of nuclear families, and particularly heterosexual. The toxic heterosexuality and toxic monogamy is really helpful to keep the patriarchy in its place and to keep women as slaves and incubators and guys as exhausted wage slaves, just not being able to, live their full, authentic, deep, true lives.
I think you capture the essence of that thought in one of the phrases you use. Capitalism works best when the nuclear family model keeps a woman and a man financially dependent on each other. In order to force people to work long hours at shit jobs, we need to give them no other options. Is that exactly what you're trying to say?
Yeah, it is. I mean, and the thing is that was never my experience, because I've always been financially, creatively, socially, and emotionally independent, and we equal parented and all the rest of it. So that gave me the privilege and the fortune to be able to leave at the perfect time when you just went, okay, I've tried this every single way as much as I'm prepared to, and it's time to move on.
This book's full of interesting observations and turns of phrase, and here's one that I'll put to you. Fuck off status. What is it? How do you get it? And what difference does it make?
Oh, fuck off status is simply having your business, your money, and your house and being able to tell anyone you don't want to deal with to fuck off. So I think that everybody should be aiming for it and also encouraging and enabling that in all the people around them. And I think it's something good to throw around in your head, because a lot of people, and I would say particularly men, but actually come to think of it, I don't think that's true. Like a lot of men, there's this idea that they're the providers and they're the ones who, get on the bended knee and give the expensive ring, and, they're the ones who do the big performative, look at all this money I'm making. And she says, oh, look at him, he really looks after me and he bought me this car with my name on the registration plate. And as though that's some kind of form of love or status or something like that. So I think that, even the idea that men are supposed to pay on dates and first dates and all that kind of ridiculousness that I've just never experienced in my life. And it gives me the ick, actually. It's extremely creepy. Along with, women changing their surnames and children all having their father's surnames. It's incredibly creepy and so unexamined. So women need to, well, everybody needs to, but women in particular need to go through their life and set up their life as if they're going to be single for their whole life, and not only single, but financially providing for themselves and others. Now, I understand that also involves, structural change up the pipeline with, governments and universal basic income and fair access to all the things that, men have. But fuck off status is something that everybody should be aiming for and enabling. And if they don't want to enable it, that's probably worth investigating. Why is it that you don't want your partner, your children, your parents to be financially separate from you? And, what's in that weird, toxic, fucked up relationship where it's about a financial transaction? To be honest, I just think that if money wasn't an issue, that most people wouldn't be together, and particularly most people with children. And that is so fucked. Like, how is it that if we agree that women should be allowed to have children and they should be able to have as many as they want, why aren't the government just paying for outright for the raising of these citizens of their country, these babies that are citizens of the country? The financial and emotional stability of a citizen of this country, being a child, a baby, should not be tied to a potentially unstable source, financially or emotionally, which could be, whoever is the partner. And in most cases, it's the father.
I want to take you back for a moment to a moment in a bookshop that you write about, and it's a moment of profound revelation. I and my emotions are separate, you say. What brought you to that moment, and what did you find in that bookshop?
Oh, it was interesting. It's so funny talking about this book. I mean, the thing is about kind of when books come out and book launches, it's kind of like having a party for a lasagna you cooked 5 years ago. It's like, oh, did I write that? And it's like, oh, that's right, because I'm launching it now, but I'm on to other projects. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I was just at my wit's end trying to kind of make sense of what to do next and how to do it. And I was so low on energy. I went into readings bookshop at the self-help section, and I just bought $350 worth of books. And there was one of the books was Eckhart Tolle. This guy was totally down on his luck, like just sleeping rough, suicidal ideations, and had been for quite some time. This is my memory of how it went, which may not be correct, but what stayed with me was this. He was just at the end of his tether and he thought, I can't live with myself anymore. And then he realized there was two parts, the I and myself. I can't live with myself anymore. And so it was at that point that I started to really separate my feelings from me. And I kind of started to see them as a kind of a little child kind of acting out or playing up or being distressed. And so it made that separation. So when I would start to feel unregulated or start, being overwhelmed with grief or confusion or frustration or just like a whirly mind that wouldn't stop in hypervigilance, I just go, oh, wow, look at what my emotions are doing, and literally see them like they were a small child separate from me. And I would treat them and care for them like that. It's just like, oh, what do you need? And come and sit here and stay as long as you want. And I didn't push them away. I sat with them and I comforted them, and I treated them the way that I would treat an unregulated 4-year-old.
Your book is full of these moments, and there's another one I'd like to talk about. It's where you're pulled over by a young policeman who, rather than fine you for your reckless driving, simply cautioned you. It might ordinarily be a very minor incident, possibly just an annoying one, but you call it a turning point. What made it a turning point?
I was really unregulated, and I was just panicked and running on empty. I was writing 2 columns a week for The Age. I had 3 little kids. I was having an affair. A relationship was breaking down. I was in a state of real distress, and was just putting out fires everywhere, and just really wasn't thinking straight. And I had a collection of fines for running red lights and speeding and not wearing my seatbelt. And I pulled into the back of a supermarket where I go quite a bit, the IGA in Brunswick. And this cop just pulled in next to me in the car park next to me and said, and I can't remember exactly how it went, but maybe you'll have to read the book, listeners. It went something like, he just said, you can't drive like that. You're going to kill yourself. And it was so calm and so non-judgmental and so caring. And he probably could have given me a ticket, and I probably would have even lost all of the demerit points I had and lost my license. But he was so kind. It really, it went to the core of me. I just think that there's these moments when you're going through such distress that you hear things in a different way and they land. I was so fractured. Perhaps it was the light that kind of caught through the cracks.
You touch on quite a few topics, and one of them is your childhood. And here's another quote from Pam Leo, who's a parenting guru, if you like. Let's raise children who won't have to recover from their childhoods. How does that statement apply to you?
Well, I think, like most people who brought up in the 70s, raised in working class Catholicism, we were raised like unwanted pets, and there was so much abuse and trauma and dysfunction, and it was so normalized. There was we were just mired in lies and misogyny and depression and distress, and it was hard for all of us, and we all coped in different ways. And I don't cope. I don't have, drugs aren't my jive, or violence isn't my jive, or I don't know. I mean, my coping mechanism is coping. So, there's this great famous saying by Hannah Gadsby, whose memoir also comes out this week, which I'm sure is a cracker, and I've loaded up on my Kindle. Says, I think the strongest person in the world is a woman who's rebuilt herself, which is me. So I think that we often have to rebuild ourselves, not those of us who can after a traumatic, growing up in that kind of environment. And to be honest, I don't know anyone who didn't suffer trauma or abuse in their childhood at all. I don't think you can escape it, but some people have other privileges and fortune and character traits that help them find fairly healthy ways to cope with it. But my coping is coping. And when we heal ourselves and repair ourselves, we can repair others. I mean, you don't have to do that kind of work in your childhood, and you don't even have to do it in a therapy room. It can be between friends and logical family and partners and all different kinds of people in your life, and creativity and music and art and work and community. And parents all went through their own abuse and trauma and dysfunction and difficult times. And I think it's only really now that some of us are lucky to be able to patch ourselves up, get strong, and move on to a place where we can get to the best possible place with the least amount of damage, and we're able to help others. There's a Toni Morrison quote that was in the front of my writing book, Use Your Words, and it was, the purpose of freedom is to free other people, and that basically sums me up.
Some of that abuse you attribute to the Catholic Church, or at least your Catholic upbringing, and you actually say every raised Catholic was sexually abused, whether a priest laid a hand on them or not. Is that really getting to the heart of the matter?
If you grew up in the Catholic Church, you experienced the constant and toxic misogyny, homophobia, sex negativity, body negativity. It was relentless. And it's kind of bizarre when you think about the what they sell you about the idea of religion and Catholicism and Christianity. If you actually look at the amount of time spent talking about how evil bodies are and desire and sex, and it's just so weird, but it was so normalized. There was this constant discussion, and it was there all the time. even, the first Holy Communion where the little girls get dressed up in white dresses with veils like brides, and they still do. I mean, anyone outside the Catholic Church, if they think about Catholicism, all they think about is pedophilia. So, I mean, that and the pedophilia in some ways, like that's this is a very visible part of the sexual dysfunction in the church. But the part that needs to be spoken about more is just the insidious and constant sex negativity and homophobia, misogyny, fetishization of virgins, and it's so weird. I mean, if you're not brought up in it, and people who are, like, there's so many people who I've known, mates of mine, who were not brought up in the Catholic Church but have hung out with a lot of Catholics because we're good crack. They say it sounds like a cult. It's like, it is a cult. It's a virginity cannibalism cult. That's all it is.
The final chapter in True North is about the death of your mother. Did her death bring closure, regret, forgiveness?
No, just happiness and joy. I just feel relief, happiness and joy. And I have since the second she died. I feel like I was involved in a 53-year legal battle, and it's finally been found in my favour, and I've got to pay out and it's all over. Just 100% happiness and joy.
Catherine Deveny, thank you for joining me on the Good Reading Podcast.
Thank you.
I've been talking to Catherine Deveny about her memoir, True North. It's published by Black Ink, and you can find it at goodreadingmagazine.com.au. My name's Greg Dobbs, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to Good Reading print and online magazine at goodreadingmagazine.com.au.